So, what happened? You guys hung up or got kicked off or what? You're back now, aren't you? Hello? Ground control to Major Tom. Actually, it's Lieutenant.
Wow, I was muted. Never mind.
Oh,
yeah, I just went through a long explanation, but I was muted the whole. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like Friday evening. 5 minutes before lighting the candles, the house is suddenly in total disarray. Everybody's mass confusion and such. Same thing. It is, 2 seconds before the show starts, everybody is running and running. Blah. Mass
Cats
confusion.
and dogs living together. Mass hysteria.
That's what it was. It was mass hysteria. All of a sudden, it never fails. It's like right before something important, all of a sudden there's a comet and eclipse and.
Okay. Jesse, are you there?
I am here. You have summoned me.
Uh-oh. That's a little spooky.
Yeah, that was weird. So we got.
Wait a second. We're not watching The Mummy, are we? What?
No. We're not watching The Mummy.
Okay.
Not yet, anyways.
Not yet.
All right. So if you haven't figured it out by now,
this is 2.5
Frank
opinions.
comes in and says, if you haven't figured it out by now, we're really confused.
Yeah.
So therefore, this is not the Twilight Zone. This is 2.5 opinions.
I was hoping it was a Twilight Zone, man.
The signpost up ahead. 2.5 opinions. Jesse, we got the chat room up?
We have the chat room up. It is running smoothly. We have a few people there, here and there. No cannon fire yet, but we'll soon see that based on what you guys were referencing.
The chat room is up, so we've got 2.5 people on the chat room, and we've got 2.5 people listening on the air tonight. Is that right, Frank?
No, it's about 130. But as you probably pointed out last week, that it's probably they had it left on for the music, and then they're just switching over to us, and they're going, "Who are these idiots?"
Yeah, exactly.
So it'll either go up or down depending upon what our content is.
So 2.5 opinions, and we also have we have a web page now, and we've updated and posted some of the previous archive shows. So if you want to go back and try to scramble through and get to the meat of whatever we're rambling about, please visit us on 2.5opinions.com. That's TWO, the letter N, A, spell out half, opinions. There's got to be a better way to try to figure out how to get to 2.5opinions.com, but there it is.
Really. Not really.
I've been working on a couple of things based on some of our shows in the past and based on some of the topics that I've been asked about over the past couple of years anyways. And it's really dealing on specific topics, both the Torah Portion based as well as other things like what is Messiah, if there is a Messiah, what must Messiah be, and does Yeshua fit these roles? And what we do on 2.5 Opinions is approach the Torah and the New Testament and the whole aspect from a Jewish perspective. We're not studied and trained in yeshiva, but we're trying to approach it from a Jewish perspective. Right. So when we get asked questions, here's the Jewish perspective, here's what the New Testament says, you got to decide for yourself.
Right, but we do try to approach it strictly from a Torah viewpoint as best we can, because everything must be looked at from the view of Torah going forward, not the other way around.
Absolutely, from from the light of Torah, and
Right.
so even this Torah portion is going to bring up one of those things where is there a contradiction? Is it just a misunderstanding, a mistranslation, whatever? And hopefully we'll bring that up. So I'm going to start posting some of these things under the opinions tab under 2.5 opinions. One of them is going to be on Messiah. One of them is going to be on hell. Why did Jews not?
No.
I know. Why did Jews not believe in hell, or what is the Jewish version of hell, and things like that versus the Christian version, and what does the New Testament really have to say
A
about
9-hour kvetching from your grandmother. That's
I know.
That's a Jewish
That's
version
hell.
of hell.
And other things. So I'm going to start posting those on, and I think Frank, you were working on a couple of things as well. We need to get those posted, and Jesse, hopefully,
Actually, I have to find them someplace in all of the computer stuff I've got. Some writings I did in college from a Christian perspective that I have to revise from a Hebrew or Jewish perspective. It won't change much, but the focal point will change.
I have an idea that will bring some consternation upon this so-called religious battleground. It should be fun to see when we actually do that, but I will be getting with you two first before I even post anything on 2.5 opinions for it.
Consternation?
And
did he digest a thesaurus or something?
Oh no, he's a college boy, so he uses those big words. So
Yeah.
what's the topic what's the topic you're looking at, Jesse?
The topic you're referring to. I see that smile on your face. You already know where it's going. The understanding that the 3 major religions that have any current tie to Jesus or a Messiah of any sort. Yeah. Christians, Messianics, Jews. We are going to throw into the mix. Let's see what each of them think of it.
I think of Messiah.
Yes.
Okay, so to pine this down, to help you out a little bit here, Jesse, to pine it down is you're saying you want to do a show dedicated to what is Messiah based on what the Tanakh says, not based on what we think, what we believe. And then hopefully the takeaway is going to be, now in light of the New Testament, what is Messiah? Are we misinterpreting the New Testament? Are we mistranslating the New Testament? Are we misunderstanding the New Testament? Or just to have to throw the whole thing out? I mean, it's going to be one of those things. Is we're going to present things that Messiah, the Tanakh. This is what Tanakh is talking about, a Messiah. Now,
let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, though.
Exactly, and that's kind of the point. Is that we're not asking you to throw away everything, or like you said, Frank, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. But this is what Tanakh says. Now, how does everything fit, and where do we fit the New Testament into this? Because, like you said, Frank, the light is Torah. Everything comes from the light of Torah. If it doesn't match with Torah, then we have to reconsider our approach. Not necessarily but just reconsider our approach. So hopefully Jesse's going to work on that and give Frank and I some ideas of where he's going with this, and hopefully sometime in the future we'll come up with and just dedicate a show to this is Messiah in Tanakh.
Okay.
But tonight we're going to talk about the Torah portion. And what's the Torah portion?
Jesse, what's the Torah portion?
The Torah. You're asking me about the Torah portion. The Torah portion is Yithro.
Oh,
a whole blast of fun right there.
Would that be Yithro Bodine?
Bodine.
Yeah. Oh, come on.
Jethro Bodine. It's Beverly Hillbilly. Never mind. So
okay,
I
went too far back.
Live or not? I get messages back and forth on Skype and other places. Are we broadcasting or not?
I'm
check on that
trying
for
to
us.
double check because I'm hearing 2 points of view currently.
I'm not hearing music, that's for sure. But then again, I don't have the chat room up. So,
Okay, I'm hearing us. We're good.
okay, all right. Must have been somebody singing in the background. Singing in the bathtub. La da 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 dee. Yeah.
All right, so let's try to. All right, turn my dad's head this way. Turn Frank's head this way. Now we focus here.
Nice try. Okay. So this is Yethro, and Yethro is Moses' father-in-law, right? So what could this person possibly have to do with Torah?
Yeah, I really think Yethro is Moses' father-in-law, because after all, the first 6 verses of our Torah portion, we're reminded no less than 4 times out of 6 verses, Yethro, comma, Moses' father-in-law, comma, blah, 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 blah. What's up with that? I don't know. I really don't. I've looked everywhere I can as to why is it every time we hear the name Yethro, there's a comma, Moses' father-in-law, comma, and then we continue on. I don't get that. What, Moses, you think we're really that dense that you have to remind us every time you mention Yethro's name that he's your father-in-law? We got it the first time.
Come on,
Got it the second time.
we have Occupy Wall Street. Okay, I think Moses is a little bit concerned that some people are dense.
Yeah, but again, Moses is writing for all eternity, not just for a couple of dense individuals like you and I. But I don't know the answer to that one. If anybody has the answer, please log on to 2.5opinions.com and send us an email and tell us, why do you think that Moses harps on the idea that every time he mentions the name Yethro, he has to throw in Moses' father-in-law?
Well, could it be that Yethro has several names?
Could be part of it. I've read some of that. I've also read that at this point in time, when Yethro was going by the name Reuel, when he was the high priest of Midian, that he was something of importance. You know, I'm kind of a pretty big man around here. You know, I'm kind of important around here.
Yeah.
But now that he's renounced that and renounced paganism, and he's acknowledged the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, acknowledged what God did for Israel in Egypt, and he's come to Moses and he's going to sacrifice to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that now he's acknowledging that Moses is kind of big man on campus and Yethro is not.
Because back in the day, if you were a religious leader, you were also a political leader, because they typically went hand in hand in cultures back in that day.
Back in the day, back when, you were 19, 20?
No, that day, as in when Moses walked around.
Yeah, you were what, 19, 20? Oh, no, you were about 12.
Oh, come on. I may be older than you, but I'm not that old. Jeez. I'm not sitting here in bandages and Copic jars, okay?
All right, so we're going to read Yethro, and we're going to start in chapter 18. Verses 19 through 23, 24?
I think so, 23.
23? Okay.
23.
Okay.
So 18, 19 through 24, or 23.
Right.
Gosh, for some reason I'm stuck on 24. And
yeah, Jack Bauer again, okay?
I know. No,
I think I know where you're stuck on 24, because it's Moses obeyed his father-in-law and did all he said.
Oh, that's what 24 says. Yeah.
Okay, we'll do
maybe
24.
we should end on 24 then, because Jack Bauer.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
Oh.
So let's do that now. As an overall view of this Torah portion, Yethro comes up. He's bringing Moses' wife and Moses' children. Nowhere in Torah does it tell us why, when, where, or how they were separated or no longer cohabitating, but nonetheless, Yethro's now bringing them back together, and we have Yethro's going to give advice to Moses, which Moses is going to take, and it will establish a form of hierarchy and part of a political system that continues even up until David's time, and even into the time of the Second Temple. And then we're going to have these weird instructions. Don't come up to the mountain. Do come up to the mountain. Come up to the mountain, but only so far. Moses go back down and remind the people that they're not to come up to the mountain. Not even their cattle are supposed to come to the mountain. And Moses
But
says,
Lord, you've already said that.
yeah, we've already said that. Go.
Yeah.
That's all right. Go back down the third time and remind them. Not sure what that means. And then we have the Ten Commandments, and nowhere in all of Torah are they called Ten Commandments.
True.
But yet, Judaism, Christianity, Messianics, we all regard this as the Ten Commandments and the structure of the Ten Commandments. But there's a weird thing in here that I'm going to bring up that is going to challenge all of us. Christians specifically, Messianics specifically, not so much Jews because they don't really care about the New Testament anyways, but this is something that's interesting that's going to come up that's really brought out in the New Testament, even though Judaism talks about it, but it's not specifically brought up in this fashion in the Torah. So,
Okay, so Jesse, are you ready to read?
Ready and able.
Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bakar banu mikol ha'amim v'tan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah. El melech ne'eman.
amen.
Amen. Exodus chapter 18, verses 19 through 24. Now listen to me. I will advise you, and may the Lord be with you. You represent the people before God, and you shall bring the matters to God. And you shall admonish them concerning the statutes and the teachings, and you shall make known to them the way they shall go, and the deeds they shall do. But you shall choose out of the entire nation men of substance, God-fearers, men of truth, who hate monetary gain. And you shall appoint over them leaders over thousands, leaders over hundreds, leaders over 50s, and leaders over 10s. And they shall judge the people at all times. And it shall be that any major matter they shall bring to you, and they themselves shall judge every minor matter, thereby making it easier for you, and they shall bear the burden with you. If you do this thing, and the Lord commands you, you will be able to survive, and also all this people will come upon their place in peace. Moses obeyed his father-in-law, and he did all that he said.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah imet v'kayei olam nota b'tokenu. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah. El melech ne'eman.
Amen. So even Moses obeyed his father-in-law. That's a warning for anybody out there getting ready to marry my sons. You must obey your father-in-law.
Oh, ouch. Wow. Really now?
It's in the Torah. You can't deny it.
Coming out swinging. This is
Man, he's swinging for the fences with that one, I'm telling you.
Okay. Maybe not so much, but nonetheless, it's in the Torah. Hey, my father-in-law gave me the greatest advice before I married my wonderful wife. Very patient, very lovely, very beautiful, very merciful and graceful.
And
very
you're buttering her up
forgiving.
for something right now.
Yeah, I know. My father-in-law gave me this advice. He said, now, Chris, you and Pam, you're going to fight. I said, no, I love her. She's wonderful. Just shut up. You guys are going to fight. Every couple fights. You let her win all the little ones, but on the important one, put your foot down. And when you put your foot down, you put it down hard so she will never forget. And don't ever forget this. Lay a hand on her, I'm going to be all over you like white on rice. That's the only advice he gave me for marriage. That was my father-in-law. And I I've obeyed that ever since. I think
Yep.
I have.
Yep.
Pam, have I? All right, so back on Torah.
Okay, you just stepped in it there, buddy. Okay, so with what we read, this is two sides of a coin, and this came up in our pre-show discussion about this. Do we do this? Do we actually appoint leaders the way that it says in the Torah? I say that that's ideal way to do it, but do we actually do it, or do we settle for something that's as close as we can get to it? Because these people that are supposed to be appointed as leaders, they're supposed to hate monetary gain. What does that mean? Everybody likes to have money, likes to be able to do things. But what can we understand it to mean monetary gain for monetary gain's sake? Not we need money to live and pay bills and things like that, but we're in other words, mammon is the root of all evil. Not necessarily, but it's actually the love of mammon, the love of money, for money's sake, is the root of all evil. Is that what this is saying? Somebody who loves money just for money, for because they're greedy. Is that what this is saying? Because over the years, you have to have some kind of money, some kind of financial support in order to be a politician, in order to be any kind of leader for any country, for any state, for any city, to be the stinking dog catcher. You have to be able to run a campaign. Come on now.
Okay, so what do you believe that this is saying? I mean, I hear you asking a lot of questions, and I'm with you. I like doing it the same way, but what do you think this is saying? Yithro's coming up, and he recognizes that, Moses, you're wearing yourself out here.
Right.
Every individual is coming up to you about every little aspect, and we haven't even been given the instructions yet from Sinai. I mean, you haven't gone up and gotten the 10 Commandments yet. We
Right.
don't have the full covenant yet, but yet everybody's coming up to you, asking you to be the judge between this and that. In other words, they're coming up and saying, Moses, what does God say? Is this right or is this right? And you're wearing yourself out trying to work on this. You need to devise the camps. You need to divide the people up into groups, that these smaller, lesser things, hey, he poked me in the eye, so can I poke him in the eye? That belongs down to the levels of the 10s. And then the levels of the 50s, they can deal with these things of, my family is encroaching on that family, or this family is encroaching on this family. That's the 50s. And then the 100s, they can deal with a little bit weightier matters. And then the weightier matters is the thousands. But the real heavy matters, the ones that, wow, we have no way to be able to discern how to handle this one. Right. It's going to take God. You take those on. Right. Moses, right. This will make your life simpler. But when you choose these individuals to be leaders over, and whenever you see leaders there, the word is appropriate for leaders. But later on in Deuteronomy, we're going to see that the word is going to be Elohim. This is tricky. Christians and your Christian Bible will not translate the word Elohim as gods. They'll translate the word Elohim as judges. This is exactly what Jethro is talking about. This is what Moshe is dealing with, and this is what God is going to further instruct Moshe on, is right. How to be judges. And Elohim is a judge. God is Elohim because he is the ultimate judge. He is the final judge. He is the source of judgeship. He's right. Higher than the Supreme Court. Therefore, he's Elohim. But the right. word Elohim refers to a judge. Therefore, when you read your Tanakh, an angel is an Elohim, a man is an Elohim, God is Elohim, and it's talking about a judge speaking and ruling in behalf of the Elohim God. So
Right. So
that's our premise.
right. According to this, it says you shall choose out of the entire nation men of substance. Okay.
What does that mean? Substance.
That
I mean,
means
they got a lot of stuff.
no. Substance can mean many things. It can be they have a willpower. They have a sense of duty. They have a sense of justice. They have a sense of right and wrong. And then the next.
So a man of substance is someone that he's established himself with the way he lives, what he says, how he does business, how he raises his family. We look at that and go, you know what? That guy, that's a man of substance. He's solid in his business. He's solid in his words and his counsel and his advice. And look at his family. Right.
He's not wishy-washy. He's straight up with you. He gives you an honest answer for an honest question.
So that does pose a question. This question comes from Lamb Chat. Why would Moshe listen to a priest of Midian?
Ooh, Tiff, or I was going to say the person's name. We try to be careful and not mention who's posting these on the chat room, but
yeah, we don't want to give away our sources.
Yeah, but I mean, just jumped straight into the middle of it. I mean, really did. It just jumped straight in the middle of it. So we're going to have to digress a little bit to address this. Yeah, Reuel was the high priest of Midian.
Yes.
Our sages tell us that the old dead guys, the guys that have studied this ad infinitum and torn it apart 1,000 different ways to find the thread of truth throughout all of it, they tell us that Yithro has several names, and we'll see his name pop up in several different places. The two prominent names, well, actually three prominent names that we have, are going to be Reuel, the high priest of Midian, which is Moses' father-in-law, Yether, and Yithro. The difference between all of these is when Reuel denounces all the other gods and is no longer a high priest and is really going to be chastised and kicked out of Midian because he's denounced all the plethora of gods other than the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
So how do we know that he's done that?
He's going to be Yether, and then whenever he comes to Moses, and this is why it's reiterated over and over, Yithro, a Vav has been added to his name, and that means that Yithro has converted to and has acknowledged the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's funny that the sages never say that Yithro ever converted to Judaism, but Yithro was the chief of the converts, the quintessential. And if you don't understand Hebrew well enough, he's the quintessential Ger Tushav. He is the true Ger. We have Goyim, which is the nations, all the peoples. Goyim is usually hedonistic, heathens, pagans, etc., following all kinds of false gods. Ger is the one that is kind of a Noahide from a Jewish point of view. From a Christian or Messianic point of view, the Ger would be the ultra-Messianic. He's the one that follows the Torah as much as he can without conversion and becoming a legally recognized Jew. This is the Yithro's aspect. So with the question is, why would Moshe listen to the priest of Midian? He wouldn't. But Moshe has acknowledged and seen this priest of Midian had wisdom long before he came to Torah. Just like we're going to soon encounter Balaam and his donkey. Balaam had prophecy, but he wasn't a Jew. Who knows what gods he believed in, but yet his prophecy is something that we still recite to this very day in every synagogue, talking about how lovely are your tents, O Jacob. I see it, but not now. It's in the future, and he's talking about Mashiach. And so Messianic and from Jewish points of view, Balaam truly is a prophet, though he was never Jewish, and he ended up being slaughtered. So
Right.
just because someone is not Jewish, just because someone does not follow Judaism and Moshe or Moses, does not mean they're to be negated all out. There is some wisdom, there is some understanding there, however, from perspective. But Moshe is listening to Yethro. He's not listening to the priest of Midian. I hope that answers your question.
And Yethro, we'll find out in this portion, is accepted by Moses because he's allowed to offer a burnt offering and a peace offering, or is it Thanksgiving offering? I can't remember what the exact word.
Yeah, and
which to lead into what you two were saying just then and there, it's what someone else posed immediately after the question that you guys were answering. Is he not listening to his father-in-law and not the priest of Midian?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, right. and that's really it. So, going back, man of substance, and
God fearers.
What's the next one? God fears. And interesting. What's the word for God fears? Is it Elohim or is it Yod He Vav He? What is it, Jesse? Help us out. God fears. Since we're being specific on words here, because words mean things. And Frank, I love it that you bring this up, and you and I have had this discussion for years, because the end result of this, and I'm going to cut to the chase. The end result of this is: do I listen to this individual that is a leader in my nation, yet he does not meet the criteria that we're reading here in chapter 18, verse 21 specifically? Was he a man of substance? Well, maybe, but maybe not. Was he a God-fearer? Wow, Bernie Sanders, really? Seriously? Help me out here on this one. Men of truth. Oh, wow. I don't know of a single president or politician that hasn't lied. Who hate monetary gain. What does that mean by monetary gain? Because, like Frank said, you got to have money. But is it probably the love of money, or you're doing something for the purpose of money, not for the purpose of justice? And we can go on.
Perhaps like how you can bribe a judge.
Yeah, exactly. And so we're going to go on with this. So God fears, Jesse. What's that word that's used there? Because I don't see Yod He Vav He in this whole sentence in Hebrew.
Nor do I. Give me 2 seconds to read over this real quick.
1001, 1002.
It's Elohim.
I'm gonna smack you, Frank.
Yeah, it
you said
there it is. There it is.
Yeah, it's Elohim.
Elohim Anashi.
Yeah,
there it is. There it is. There it is.
So it's Elohim. So judge fears, but in this instance, Elohim does mean the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God that's going to the Yod He Vav He, but it's Elohim. So someone that fears God. What does that mean to you, Frank? How do I know that you fear God? How do I judge that? Well, if I'm choosing a leader and I'm looking at Frank, right. He's a man of substance. He's raised his family properly. His words are used. His business is true and accurate. Everything about this. Now let's go to the second one, and he's a God-fearer. How do I figure out if you're a God-fearer or not? Especially this is the only
way. Right. The only way I can look at that is if I take into consideration that the ultimate keeper of my soul is the Most High, blessed be He. There is an ultimate negative in disobeying Him. Okay? So, do I fear? Do I respect God? Yes.
Here's the problem in that, Frank.
Yeah.
I agree with you. But like we keep on saying, this is a living Torah. And sometimes we have to put our minds back in the place of those that are receiving it at the time. At the time, what was a God-fearer at this time? We don't have a formal nation, so to speak, of Israel. We don't have the 10 Commandments yet. We don't have the priesthood. We don't have a lot of things that we have now 4,000 plus years since then.
At this point, I would say somebody who understood
established,
what it meant to go out and get manna and not go out on the seventh day looking for it.
but manna hasn't. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we have
manna.
We were given manna. Okay, all right. That's good. That's good. But that's a brand new thing to us.
Yes.
So, are we being introduced for the first time to God, or is there an established history of understanding what God-fear means by the time we come up to Yithro giving advice to Moshe?
Well, there has to be a backstory, because the Most High, blessed be He, is referenced as God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Okay, so the children of Israel know this history. They know who they're being talked about and who they're talking about. So they have to have some idea. They may not know all the little intricacies that we get, that we're privy to, because it's written down for us. Okay? But they do know in general who God is.
And I agree with you. I would go a step further and say that when we're looking at the word specifically of Elohim, and as I prefaced earlier, Elohim meaning judge, a judge is there to rule out justice. This individual, a God-fearer, and one who fears Elohim, is looking for true justice in his own life so that he can portray from his own life justice within others. Yes. So this is someone that is looking for justice. In the whole aspect of justice in dealing with two rights, which is the greater right? In other words, stop signs on the street. And this is a real easy one. This really is the easy one. The harder ones come into when we deal with personalities and individuals. But the easy one is there's a stop sign. However, I have a sick or injured individual in my vehicle, and I've got to blow through this stop sign, or at the very least roll through the stop sign, and the cop pulls me over. Absolute justice says, you ran the stop sign. That's the letter of the law. You must pay a ticket. Pay a ticket, and I'm going to waste time, which could mean life, limb, or eyesight to the individual that you're transporting. Or the cop is going to immediately see life, limb, or eyesight. Never mind.
Follow me to the hospital.
I'm going to give you an escort to the hospital, and we're going to ignore the letter of the law for all stoplights and stop signs from here to the hospital.
Right, because you're exhibiting understanding of the spirit of life.
Exactly. And so that's what I'm seeing as a God-fearer is one that is going to weigh the matters to execute justice. That's what it means by God-fearer here. Men of truth. Oh, no. What is a man of truth?
That means you can't even tell a little white lie.
Well, here's the tough one, because the word is emet.
Yep.
Aleph Mem Tav.
Implying ultimate truth, not just truth of opinion.
But ultimate truth means what? I mean, we have, Yeshua arguing before Pilate, and Pilate says, so what is truth? And we don't even get an answer from Jesus on that one. But our wonderful Jewish brothers tell us that Aleph Mem Tav is emet. Aleph is the first letter, Tav is the last letter, and Mem is the middle letter of the Hebrew alphabet. That means emet incorporates everything within the alphabet, which means truth, or emet, incorporates everything in all of Torah, which means, and I'm serious, they go through several paragraphs to explain all this. Aleph Mem Tav, though translated as truth in English is accurate, it is not complete, because Aleph Mem Tav truly means ultimate reality. Aleph Mem Tav, truth, from God's perspective, is God or godly. This is the eternal reality. We are finite. Emet means This is true as an actual factual basis for all eternity. It was true for Adam, and it'll be true for the last man.
Right.
Emet means eternal reality. It doesn't. We diminish it by saying it means it's truth.
Right, and it literally is God's truth, not our own.
Yeah, because honestly, and this is a philosophical thing that's been argued since Plato. This isn't something new. This isn't just the hippies in the '60s or the millennials or any.
Dude, you're harshing my mellow, man.
Oh, I know. This isn't every generation under 30 years of age. Every 30 and under in every generation has always argued a relativistic approach. Truth is relative, man. I mean, my truth and your truth could be two different things. I'm taking it from my perspective. This is true. Yes, but that's not what Emet is trying to portray.
So what I told you was true from a certain point of view.
Yes, but that is English true. Emet in Hebrew is this is eternal reality, not just your perspective, not just your approach. Not saying your approach and your perspective is wrong, but this is eternal reality, and that's what it's saying. Men of eternal reality. How do I judge this person, Frank?
The question I would have to add more to that would be along the lines, the closest we could get to in our very minuscule English language. Please remind me of the quote that explains what the English language is all about. We're working with a language that makes up in style what it lacks in. But that quote, anyways.
Yeah, I can't remember that one. I know what you're talking about. The language that makes up in style what it lacks in substance.
Yeah, something like that. But trying to imply from that, the closest thing you could even remotely come to that understanding of eternal truth in a both physical mindset and a language-based mindset would be a law. It would I stumble you. A law.
Yeah,
a law.
With all
no.
A law. A-L-A-W.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
With the understanding that if there is a law, a particular law in place, the ultimate truth, there is no one there to question what it is. They could better understand it, better imply what it's portraying to, but by all intents and purposes, what it says is not determined or swayed by people's opinion.
Right. Or emotions.
Gravity falls. Gravity is a law of science.
Okay, yeah,
as an example.
A law of science. There's gravity, and so that means whatever goes up must come down. That would be an eternal reality based on gravity, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I'm
with Bugs Bunny, and you never studied law, you'd never fall, right?
Well, yeah, because that's what the New Testament says. Without the law, I wouldn't have known sin, so therefore I can't sin without the law, and so we're going to do away with the law, and therefore I can't sin anymore. That's what? That is the most obscure logic I've ever heard of. Now,
that is the most circular logic I have ever heard of.
Oh, I know, but that is a very Christian approach, and I'm really dumbing it down. So please don't throw.
It's a generalization.
Okay. Spears at me for saying that.
Right. It's a generalization from what has been taught over the centuries. Okay, and we have to, if we're honest with ourselves, we have to understand that what we have been taught as Christians or pre-emergent Jews, if you want to put it that way, is that man. Yeah,
that's a cool. I don't know. I probably have heard of it before. I don't know. Maybe you coined that phrase. That's cool.
Right? Is that we have been taught what man wants us to understand, or influence, or after all, let's be honest. We've got Constantine and Constantine's mommy to thank for the Nicene Creed. Okay, let's be honest. Let's be intellectually and spiritually honest here. We have to, seek truth, then we have to admit that. So men of truth.
All right, so we are really digressing here.
Right.
So let's go forward, and we're going to go into the whole monetary thing. And what were you saying about that? I mean, you said, okay, we all need money. We all need and we shouldn't say money. We all need a means to trade, to
Yes.
Increase our value and sense of comfort and lifestyle.
To obtain water, to obtain food, to obtain sustenance to live.
Yeah, so we can call whatever that is, whether it's a barter system or coinage or gold, silver,
right.
diamonds, whatever it may be, it's money.
Yeah.
But is it saying that I can't earn money? What do you take of this? Is it saying that I can't earn money, or what does it mean?
It means that you should not you should not get money just because you love money. In other words, money is only a means to an end. What is your means to what your end is?
You should not be Scrooge McDuck?
Yeah, really.
Okay, so we're talking about someone, you do not make decisions based upon monetary gain. You're not making your decision based on what you get out of this,
right?
Whether it be actual coinage, gold, silver, or whatever. You're not making a decision based on what you gain, but
in other words, you and Jesse come before me in a court, and I have to make a ruling. Well, if I rule in Jesse's favor, he's not going to give me any money. But if I rule in your favor, maybe you'll give me some money. It also goes down to bribery.
But it could be bribery. It could be a lot of things. It is.
Yes.
Okay, so if I weigh in favor of this person, then he's going to owe me a favor in the future. Therefore, or, if I weigh in favor of Trump, then whenever he becomes president, he's going to write a law that promotes my business.
Yeah, it's possible.
It's indirect as well as it is direct.
Yes.
And so this is someone that is not looking for what he can gain out of a decision or a business dealing or an arrangement or any communication whatsoever it may be. This is not someone that's looking to gain something for himself. So we're immediately dealing with the whole thing of hubris, greed, and pride.
And avarice, yes.
Well, and avarice, yeah.
No, it's all of that stuff. It's all of that stuff thrown in together. Go ahead.
Which I'm pretty sure through this right here we have answered the other question that has been posed on Lamb Chat using Genesis 42 verse 18 or on a bribe.
Yeah. And I'm not.
I've got my mic muted, and I wasn't looking at Lamb Chat. So yeah. Lost Ground, you said it right. Perfect. So the next part of this whole verse is kind of wrapping it all up, and that is you're going to appoint them this type of an individual that is a person of substance. In other words, they've already been weighed. They've already been measured. They've already been something of a sound individual in their dealings with family, business, friends, community, and state.
In other words, the character of their heart has already been judged and found good.
Yes. And within that, they have been found to be those that recognize justice as an ultimate truth. That covers God-fearers and men of truth.
Yep.
And there is nothing that they have done, said, or acted that has been self-serving, who hate monetary gain. Now you're going to appoint them over tens, 50s, hundreds, and thousands. And it's interesting because Yethro does it in the reverse. We would think he should say tens, 50s, hundreds, and thousands, but he says thousands, hundreds, 50s, and tens. Is there anything within that we need to look at and understand?
Well, that's a total of 130. It's a total of 131 individual leaders or judges within a group of 1,000. That's interesting.
Say that again.
That's a total of 131 individual leaders, judges within the group of 1,000.
Is there something significant with that number? Because I'm asking out of sheer ignorance.
No, I couldn't
which
get
is
it.
odd because I love the gematria, I love the numbers, I love the representation of things, and I've never looked at that before, Frank. So did you?
I've
find
never
something?
No, I unfortunately didn't have time to look for the gematria of the 131. However,
and I don't mean just gematria. It's just, is that representative of anything that we need to be aware of? I don't know. That's interesting. I'm going to have to research.
Other
that.
than that's a structure. Okay, let me ask you something, and it may be relatable. As far as squad, group, battalion, all of that, what kind of numbers were you looking at?
So for a military array, and the United States military and the Prussians, from which we derive our United States military standard, we have gone back and remeasured and recalculated and worked this over several times, from a square foundation to a triangular foundation. And we found that the best way to oversee and direct individuals comes from a team level, and a team level is 3 to 5 individuals directed by one individual, and then it goes to it, and then you have 2 teams develop a squad, and 4 squads develop a company, and 4 companies develop a battalion, and so forth. And so it's just a matter of what is the optimal number for one leader to direct and command and control.
Right.
But we're looking at not just leaders, we're looking at judges here. So he's saying 1 judge over 10. And it's from this verse, oddly enough, it's from this verse that we have a leader over 10. So therefore there must be 10 before we can come up to a definitive opinion on any given subject.
A minion.
And a 10 is minion.
Right.
And so we have a minion. And it's great and wonderful when you get up to, not Shrek, what was that cartoon figure that had his minions, and we get the little yellow guys with the goggles all over the place, and they're called minions.
Despicable Me.
Yeah, Despicable Me. Yeah. So, and they're called minions, but the whole idea. Yeah, exactly. They're always speaking French for some reason. But the point is, it takes.
No wonder I can't make any sense out of it.
Yeah, in a Jewish community, it takes a minion, that's the smallest number, 10, to bring about an organization to decree anything. So it takes a minion to say the blessings in a synagogue. It takes a minion to make a decision on something. It takes a minion to start a congregation, to require a rabbi, or to require a leader of any sort. That's the very least that it takes, and it comes from this verse. It comes from Yisro. Wow. It didn't come from God. It comes from Yisro. That's interesting.
Yeah. But God allows it to stand. So
Now, because it is numbered thousands, hundreds, 50s, and 10s, it is from this that it is derived that out of all the 10s, when we get 5 leaders, then the 5 leaders over the 10s, which would be 50, those 5 leaders elect a leader for themselves, which would be the leaders over 50s. Not the individuals out of the 10s. The leaders elect a representative over the 50s. Then when we have enough 50s to have hundreds, then those leaders over the 50s elect the hundreds, not the leaders over the 10s and not the individuals themselves. And then when we have enough hundreds to create thousands, it's the leaders over hundreds that elect leaders over the thousands. This seems a little bit different than what we're accustomed to, but yet, oddly enough, this is exactly our United States Constitution.
Yeah.
We are a representative republic. We are not a democracy.
No.
The democracy aspect of it says, I get to elect a leader. Yes, but that leader represents only this group. And those leaders now elect leaders for the leaders. And then those leaders, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why we besmirch the whole idea of the Electoral College. The Electoral College is based upon this foundation, this understanding.
Yeah,
of,
like it, hate it, love it, whatever. It's the only thing that has saved our republic.
Yeah, it's that whole aspect of the masses when conjoined are stupid. They really are.
Herd mentality? Oh no.
It's herd mentality. It's demonstrations. It's riots. It's craziness because it's emotionally driven. But whenever we segregate it and break it down into groups, and those groups elect leaders, and those leaders elect leaders, and those leaders elect leaders, then we get to we're disassociating the emotional driven response to something into a logical basis on wisdom from someone that is a man of substance, a God-fearer, men of truth, and those who hate money or monetary gain.
Right. Or yeah,
there is great
dishonest gain is maybe a better way to put it.
Yeah, dishonest gain. And there's great wisdom in this.
Yeah. And
this really is part of the foundation of our United States Constitution, which we have so diverged from.
Oh yeah. Yeah. As a matter of fact, if we have to believe in herd mentality, I think that's why Michael Moore looks like a cow. But that's my opinion. Sorry.
Yeah, that's why we have Rachel Maddow on. Yeah.
Yeah, Rachel Madman Caddo or Maddow. Excuse me.
So this is a great thing to discuss. Now, what do we do with the individual that comes up and says, "I am not going to support Trump. I'm not going to acknowledge Trump or Obama." Let's back it up, since most of our viewers are really against Obama and for Trump, so to speak. Most of our views were against Obama. Let's go back to Obama or Clinton or Carter or whoever you didn't like as the president. I'm against this president for whatever
Woodrow
reason.
Wilson, he's a piece of crap. Yeah. I didn't like him.
Yeah. He's, in my mind, he's the absolute worst of all of them. Second is Obama, but a very, very close second. But nonetheless, I am going to come back and I say, I am not going to listen to this guy. I am not going to support this guy. I am not going to obey this guy in the slightest, because Exodus chapter 18, verse 21 says, "Choose out of the entire nation men of substance, God-fearers, men of truth, who hate money." This person doesn't meet any of the criteria of Torah, so therefore I refuse to acknowledge this person as a leader. Can I do that?
No, you cannot.
Why not?
Because they have been chosen. David was chosen. David was great, but he also screwed up. And there are things to deal with when you have a leader that messes up. Okay.
Well, where in Torah can I what's the legal ruling in court whenever I'm going to get rid of a president? Impeach.
Yeah, you must impeach them first. In other words, you must remove the protection of the office from the individual so that they can be tried.
But Frank, where in Torah is there an impeachment process?
There isn't. It belongs to God.
Oh my gosh. That means if I've screwed up or the community has screwed up, I didn't vote for Obama, but Obama became my president. Or I didn't vote for Trump, but Trump is my president. And wait a minute.
Yeah.
I cannot negate the person that's in that office.
No.
I cannot just disregard and dismiss and not obey the person in that office. What if that person is Hitler? Hitler was voted.
Yeah.
He was voted in by the masses.
Yeah, but there are recourses.
Can I negate Hitler if I'm a subject of Hitler? What's my recourse? Is what I'm getting to. What's my recourse? Right. I don't think the individual that's in the office of president, senator, congressman, state representative, whatever it may be, I don't think he fits this bill of a man of substance, a God-fearer, a man of truth who hates monetary gain. I have accusation against him. What's my recourse, Frank?
Yeah, the only recourse you have is to find something that is a high crime or misdemeanor that can be proven. Bring that before the House.
No. You're talking American politics.
I know. Hold on a second. Hold on. Let me go there. Well, let me go there. Bring it before the House. Bring the impeachment. Strip him of his office, the protection of the office, not the office itself. And then prosecute. Bring your case before the people. And that's how we have to do it. Back then, it was strictly, once it gets to that point, it is the purview of the Most High. Blessed be He. The only person the Most High can put in place to do something to the ruler at that time was somebody like Nathan, the prophet. Because Nathan said to David, a man has one sheep. His neighbor comes and takes it. And the man has no sheep. And I'm paraphrasing here, people. I'm not speaking it perverse or verbatim, I should say. And David says, well, the man needs to pay. He needs to do this. And Nathan says to him flat out, you are that man, because this is because of Bathsheba. Okay? So that's the only recourse, is God himself or God's prophet. And David repented. David said, you're right. That's the only thing we can do. That's the only way that this can be corrected. Hello?
Yeah. Okay. Yes. I've got no argument against that whatsoever. I have a couple of things here, and that is that when we look at Torah and with this word Elohim, as far as judges and leaders, one comes up, and it's going to come up next week in our Torah portion, and it's Exodus 22 verse 28. It says, "You shall not curse Elohim, God, nor curse a ruler of your people."
Right.
We'll wait till later on to figure out what the word curse means.
But, I know what that means.
Yeah, let's just suffice it to say you will not speak evil of or come against God, nor shall you speak evil of nor come against a ruler of your people. Well, a ruler of my people are those that we're talking about in this Torah portion, those that we've elected, those that we've chosen based on the idea of, well, I think he meets all these criteria, or he's the lesser of two evils of all these criteria. He didn't meet them all, but I'm still going to vote for Trump, or I'm still going to vote for Obama, or whoever you wanted to vote for, or Hillary. But we also have Exodus 22 verse 8, a little bit before Exodus 22 verse 28. If a thief is not caught, then the owner of the house shall appear before the Elohim, the judges, to determine whether he has laid his hands on his neighbor or his property. And we're going to have in Exodus as well as in Deuteronomy that I am not allowed to go to the left or to the right. In other words, I cannot go my own way or any other way against the Elohim, the judges that have ruled. And if I do go against, if I do disregard the ruling of my judges that were elected by the community, whether I voted for the person or not is immaterial. If I do go against this individual, what does God say the recourse is? Death.
Yeah, but
wow,
there is a recourse. Wow,
that's horrible. What Yithro is doing, what God is doing, what Moshe is doing is saying, it's up to you, Frank. It's up to you, Jesse. to ensure the people that you vote in as rulers and judges over tens, fifties, hundreds, and thousands meet this criteria. It's not up to you that once they're in that position to determine whether they did or did not meet.
Right.
That means you have this responsibility when you go in and you vote for rulers over tens, fifties, hundreds, and thousands.
Yeah. And only the judges can judge the judges.
And now you live under the consequences of what was voted in by the majority. Well, I didn't go with the majority. I mean, this is Bush 2, the second Bush, and Trump. Well, wait a minute. The majority voted for Hillary, but the Electoral College gave us Trump. He's not my president. Sorry. The system and the legal process gave us Trump.
Right. But the judges judge the judges. So if you have a corrupt judge over 10, the other judges can judge that judge. You can't.
And this is where we do divert from Torah.
Yeah.
In other words, the way the United States judicial system is set up, we do divert from Torah. The United States judicial system says, when I go before a judge and I ask for justice in my case, you know what? Frank said this, I say this. What do you say, judge? The judge takes the evidence that he can, looks at precedents, looks at the law, and says, Frank wins. And I say, well, that's not fair. I'm going to take it to another judge. I'm going to look for another answer. I'm going to shop around for answers here. Torah says, oh, no. You can't do that. Torah says, when you bring a case before the judges of tens, that judge of 10, he looks at the case and he says, you know what? I can't make this decision. I will appeal to the judge of 50s.
Right.
And the judge of 50s looks at it and says, you know what? We're not smart enough. This is where, built into the system of Torah, a sense of humbleness, of what we do not see in the United States justice system.
Oh, tell me about it.
Torah demands a sense of humbleness, where the judges of 50s, hundreds, even thousands say, this is beyond us.
Yep. I've got Moses.
I have an opinion, but of absolute truth, absolute reality, based on emet, truth, I have to appeal to Moses. And we have an instance in Torah. Most Christians and Messianics think this deals with working on Sabbath. It's not. It is not. The man picking up sticks on Sabbath, and the people bring him to Moses saying, what do we do with this guy? The decree was already made. If you're working on Sabbath, you're dead. Wow, that's tough. But Moshe, you never told us what work was. A different topic for a different time. The point is, they didn't see this as work as much as, what do we do with this guy in this case? And we have to look into that case to understand, because even Moses didn't know what to do. Moses had to appeal to God. So we see that case, based on this Torah portion, the man picking up sticks on Sabbath, we had 10 individuals coming up to him and saying, going to the judge of 10 individuals and saying, what do I do with this guy? The guy says, gee, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? Moses already told us. He's already instructed us. If you're working on Sabbath, you're either cut off or killed. So there must be something else going on here, because that individual said, let's take it to the judge of the 50s. And the judge of the 50s says, gee, I don't know. Let's take it to the judges of hundreds, of thousands. The judges of the thousands came to Moses and says, we don't know how to deal with this guy. Why? Because Christians and Messianics failed to read and understand Torah. It wasn't so much the guy was working on Sabbath. It was What were we supposed to do in order to get to a capital case? What was his real crime? His real crime was blasphemy against God not working on the Sabbath.
Right. And in order to get a capital punishment, you had to go all the way to the top.
And Moses said, God, what do I do with someone that disregards you completely and entirely? And God said, stone him.
Yep. But that's where we get this idea that in order to met out a capital punishment, we've got to go to higher authority.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is the Torah-based appellate court is the judges are humble enough to know that I can't rule on this. Let's kick it up. Yep. American judicial system is, I don't like the ruling of the judges. I'm going to kick it up. I'm going to search for a better answer for myself. No. Torah is not concerned with your ego. Torah is concerned with justice.
Right.
Therein lies the difference. We've got a couple other things. Jesse, you wanted to bring up something? I'm sorry, Frank.
No,
bring up this one. I didn't want to cut you off.
No, I'm good.
I have belabored this. You haven't, Frank. But
I was honestly about to start flagging you guys down, saying, "Hey, quickly, give us the sum up banner," because I think talking about the American politics, you kind of may have lost some people.
It was the point of bringing Torah into our lives, our ordinary lives, because we keep on saying this: the Torah is a living Torah portion. In other words, it applies to me even today. Even to today, how does this Torah portion and what the judges and how we base judges relate to us today? Can I disregard Trump, or can I disregard Obama, or anybody else? Can I disregard the governor of my state or my state representative because he doesn't meet my criteria of what our Torah portion says here in 18 verse 21.
Jesse, okay. I'm waiting on you.
Okay.
Segue. Next topic.
Drive away on that segue now.
Yeah, was there something on the chat room that was bringing up something?
Not yet at the moment, but it looks like some are simmering. We might have a few here shortly, if I can coax it out of the crowd.
Okay, so the banner?
The banner.
Yeah, the banner.
For me is love. Sorry, that's an old Christian song.
Okay, I'm flat out lost with the statement of the banner, but okay.
The altar.
Ah, yes, I see where you're going with that.
He's trying to coax you. Jesse had came up with something. He saw something that was really interesting, really and I told him, you need to bring this up. I like this. Go.
Trying to find more to run with it has been the challenge about this, because it is in a rather interesting place. It all deals with Yithro and Amalek. This is an interesting.
Yithro and Amalek. Okay,
I'm
confused. Well, why? What's Yithro doing that brings about Amalek?
Yithro. Do we all remember that in the when Yithro came to meet Moshe and everyone else, there was the time whenever Moshe was telling his father-in-law all that God had done to Pharaoh and to Egypt for the sake of Israel, and all the tribulations that had come upon them on the way, and how God saved them. Here's where the interesting tie-in comes in. What kind of tribulations could he be talking about?
Okay, you might have to go back and remind us what the Torah says.
Which is what I was actually reading from there.
Okay, go ahead. Where are we reading?
But I will zoom back up to it real quick. The sections I am currently covering deal with almost the first few verses. It's actually 18. verse 6 through 12 is where I'm looking at, with my main points being right around 8 and 12 on this. With 6, and he said to Moses, I, Jethro, your father-in-law, am coming to you, and so is your wife and your 2 sons with her. So Moses went out to Jethro, prostrated himself, kissed him. They greeted one another, and they entered the tent. Moses told his father-in-law all about the Lord had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians on account of Israel, and about all the hardships that had befallen them on the way, and that the Lord had saved them.
Okay. And so then we skip on down to verse 11 where it says, now I know the Lord is greater than all deities. Now, again, this is Yethro, formerly Reuel, the chief priest of the Midianites. He is denouncing all other gods in this verse and proclaiming God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as the one and only God. There is no other God. He says in verse 11, now I know that Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh is greater than all deities, for with the thing that they plotted came against them. Then Moses' father-in-law Yethro sacrificed burnt offerings and peace offerings to God, to Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, and Aaron and all the elders of Israel came to dine with Moses' father-in-law before God. Verse 12. At this point, now Yethro is acknowledging, and in his acknowledgement, he's going to do whole burnt offerings and peace offerings, shalamim and olah offerings. These are 2 different things. We don't even know what these 2 different aspects require, the definitions, anything about them until much, much later, until we get to Vayikra, but yet it's already introduced here. Yethro understands this, Moshe understands this, Aaron understands this, which goes off into a completely different aspect for us. But the point is, Yethro's doing this, and what is this altar that Moshe erects and calls, and what's that got to do with Amalek?
And that we will come to here shortly, considering there's a question on the board.
We're going to be interrupted.
It'll be one of those.
A commercial and a break by our
No. We have just now hit the cliffhanger. To be continued for the next week. No. But the question on the board is: yes, Torah says to appoint men who follow Elohim, but Scripture also says to follow the laws of the land in which you live. So does that?
Whoa! I got to stop you right there. When you say Scripture, I'm going to go back to Paul. Paul says Scripture before the New Testament was written. In Paul's understanding, Scripture is Torah,
right?
Possibly including Tanakh.
Right.
Where in Torah and Tanakh does it say I must follow the laws of the land? That is my first recourse to whoever's bringing this one up. If Paul says Scripture is Torah and Tanakh, not the New Testament. Now I am not saying the New Testament is not Scripture. I'm saying Paul references Scripture as Torah and Tanakh. I'm going to use Paul and say Scripture is Torah and Tanakh, and Torah says what the judges have ruled on already, you cannot go against. We've already discussed this with the whole idea of Elohim and judges. So where in Torah and Tanakh does it say that I must follow the laws of the land? Before we even go further with this question, I've got to ask that.
Then based on that fact, let me reword the question set before us. Yes, Torah says to appoint men who follow Elohim, but the apostolic writings also say to follow the laws of the land in which you live in, because I believe, if I can assume, because I don't care what that quote is, everyone must make an assumption at one point or another. I assume that the one asking the question was applying towards the New Testament, or the apostolic writings, as I prefer to say. So, continuing with that.
All right, let me get to the chase.
Continuing with that. Hold on.
Let me get to the chase.
I'm going to read it real quick.
Okay, read the question, because I'll cut to the chase. I was being antagonistic in my statement. Purposely antagonistic. But you go ahead. You read
All
the
right.
question, and I'll get to the point of it in what Paul was referring to, as well as
Okay.
Torah.
So, does that mean if we live in a land in which the appointed leaders are not Torah followers, should we move, or are we to secede? Asking curiously on that one. Just thoughts.
Who is this curious person you're asking?
All right. I'm trying to remember here because it's in Romans, and I want to say it's Romans chapter 13. Paul is talking about everyone must submit himself to the governing authorities, and this is where Christianity and most Messianics go back to, that we've got to follow the law of the land. I'd have to look it up real quick, but I believe it's Romans chapter 13, somewhere in the first couple of verses of it, that Paul is saying that we've got to submit to governing authorities. There's a couple problems there. What governing authorities is Paul referencing? What governing authorities is Paul referencing? Because if Paul is referencing Roman rule, which says at the time of Paul, Torah is outlawed, Rome is at war against Israel, Judaism is going to be dispersed and kicked out, the temple must be demolished and destroyed, you cannot read Torah, you cannot read in Hebrew, you cannot teach your children God's laws. Must I submit to that authority? Is that really what Paul was saying? Or whenever he says governing authorities, is he agreeing with what Yeshua or Jesus said back in Matthew and in it's either Luke or John, where Yeshua said, if you have aught against your brother, then you are to go to your brother and make it right. If you cannot make it right, and I'm paraphrasing here, then you bring it to the elders. And it's based on rulings of Torah. And the whole point is, the end of that quote. Let me look this up real quick, because I want to make sure I'm specific and precise on this. It's the whole thing of where two or more are gathered, and I'm trying to look it up because I want to be specific. I'm having problems with my concordance here. It's Matthew chapter 18 verse 20. It starts out in Matthew chapter 18 verse 15. If your brother sins against you, show him his fault in private. In other words, you go to your brother in private if there's a problem. If he listens to you, you've won your brother. But if not, then you take him to two or more with you, so that by the mouth of two or three witnesses, and here Yeshua is quoting Deuteronomy, he's quoting Torah, that by the mouth of two or three witnesses, a fact is confirmed. Emet is established, is what Yeshua is referring to. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the entire congregation. And if he refuses to listen even to the entire congregation, let him be to you as a Gentile. Wow, I thought we were gathered in. Isn't Paul always talking about Gentiles? Because that's what Paul's talking about in Romans chapter 13. He's talking to Gentiles, proselytes, Jews. He's talking to a weird mass in Romans, the whole letter to the Romans. Even Paul himself. Please, folks, you got to read your own Bible. Paul in Romans chapter 1 says, I don't know you, you don't know me, I've never been there, but I hope to come to you. Nonetheless, here's some things I want to talk about to you when I come to you, and then we have the whole rest of the letter of Romans. But within his teaching, or within his letter to the Romans of, you submit yourself to the authority, the governing authorities, is he referring to Rome? A pagan, Torah-based governmental system, or is he talking about Paul being what Paul says himself in Galatians and in Romans, a Jew among Jews, a Pharisee among Pharisees, born of Benjamin? He's referring to what we would call today, and understand the correlation here, what we would call today a rabbinical court. In Paul's day, he wouldn't call it a rabbinical court. He would have called it a properly established godly court based on Jewish law, Jewish authority, Jewish rulings, based on what Jesus is saying here. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the entire congregation. If he refuses to listen to the entire congregation, let him be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector. Truly I say to you, whatever you bind on earth shall have been bound in heaven. This isn't saying, I bind you, Satan. No, this is saying exactly what Deuteronomy and what the Torah is saying. When the judges make a ruling, they are binding that ruling based on Torah.
A bait din.
Or they are loosing that ruling. Whatever the judges rule based on what Yethro is saying, Moses set up these judges so that they can make judgment. They can either bind or they can loose. And if it's too much for them, they appeal it all the way up to you, Moshe. And Moshe, if it's too much to you, like the man gathering sticks, you appeal it to God. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Jesus, where did you get this whole idea from? Because God said, Moshe, the judges speak in my name, and if you don't obey them, you will be killed. If you go to the left or the right, you will be killed. That's in Deuteronomy. And it continues on. Truly I say to you, whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Again, I say to you that if you agree on earth about anything that they may ask, it shall be done for them. But by my name, or by my Father who is in heaven, for wherever 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, I am there in their midst. What he's saying here is based on Deuteronomy and is based on our Torah portion tonight, the judges, the Elohim that we have elected to rule on Torah for us. This is what Paul is talking about in Romans chapter 13. Obey governing authorities. It's not saying obey Trump. It's not saying obey Caesar. It's not saying obey Caligula. It's saying,
heaven help us.
It's saying your religious leaders and the governing authorities based on Torah, obey them. So Jesse's flagging and waving and going nuts because I went nuts on that. Because this comes up in Christians and Messianics all the time, and I'm sometimes appalled at the ignorance of Scripture that people have when they ask certain questions. I hope this individual wasn't asking out of ignorance or from a Christian perspective. Because Christians say, we have to obey the governing authorities, meaning we have to obey America because God's on America's side. Or does that apply if I'm in Russia or China or North Korea? Or if I'm under ISIS ruling in the Middle East? I mean, seriously, you got to use some common sense and logic in this. What is Paul talking about in Romans? What is Jesus talking about in Matthew? They're all talking about what Moses is dealing with in this Torah portion and Torah portions to follow. Go ahead, Jesse.
At this point, with the direction this has taken, I'm half tempted on just saying
with the pontificating of Chris,
something like that. I'm half tempted on just saying because the question explanation was attempted to be expounded upon, and I think you can read it right there at the bottom. It might be able to sum up the direction of the question.
Okay. So the individual goes back to Romans 13, which is appropriate because that's where this is coming from. Romans 13, and the individual stating, Romans 13 states, "Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established." The assumption here is that the authorities in question were originally established by him, and I'm assuming him means God because they capitalized the H. Yes, because that goes into something that I fear we're going to run out of time with the subject that I want to bring up tonight. You bring up a very valid and something of a quandary for me, but hopefully we'll get to that. And the individual continues on with, example is, the United States was originally founded upon Scripture. Yes, based upon man's interpretation or the accepted understanding of Scripture from those individuals at that time, which I would say is more Judaically aligned than what we have today. But nonetheless, I digress. The U.S. was originally founded upon Scripture, following individuals, etc. But the men in authority now are not God-fearing. I guess that's the train of thought of where this individual is going on. So, if I can understand this, they're saying that God establishes authority. I agree with that, and we'll get into that. Real harsh in just a minute. I agree with that. Does that mean that the individual that is in authority over me was godly ordained, and therefore, according to Romans 13:1, I must subject myself to that governing authority? I don't think in context what Paul is talking about is dealing with this. I think in context with what Paul is talking about is referring to Torah-based judgments and rulings on what to do with Gentiles, Ger Tushav, proselytes, and Jews in a Torah-based society, because he's writing to a congregation in Rome. He's not talking about the Roman rule and the Roman base of authority. Again, we've got to take things into context. I don't think. Let's pretend that Paul was writing under Nero, which he wasn't. It was just a little bit before Nero's time, but it was approaching Nero's time, and there was persecution. There was already one expulsion or expelling of a small group of Jews out of Rome in a certain what we would consider today a certain county in Rome. There were some Jews being rising up, saying there's a Messiah, and they were somewhat revolting against Rome. Rome expelled those Jews. We see this in Acts, and Aquila and Priscilla is a part of that group. So, wow. I know. I'm going on a history lesson at the same time of a Torah lesson, and this is sometimes the problem with reading the Bible as opposed to studying the Bible. We all read the Bible, but when we slow down to study it, we demand questions of the Bible itself, and we have to research those questions. So within all of this, Paul is not talking about Roman rule. He's talking about a Torah-based society's rule when he talks about the governing authorities. So the governing authorities in this context of Romans chapter 13 are those in that synagogue that will eventually appeal to the authorities in Israel, just as those at the very same time in Babylon would appeal to the authorities in Israel. Hence, and I know this is going to twist your brains, we actually have two Talmuds. There's a Babylonian Talmud and there's a Jerusalem Talmud. The Jerusalem Talmud is very short, very concise, and the reason being is those that are closest to God, those that are closest to the understanding, those that are living it more wholly understand it better. There's less needed for writing, but those that are further away from it under the influences of Roman rule, Babylonian rule, American rule, Russian rule, North Korean rule. They're further away from it, and they're more influenced by the society in which they live. Therefore, they will appeal to the Jerusalem Talmud to get understanding and rulings on certain things. This is what Paul's talking about. If Paul is a true Jew, a Pharisee of Pharisees, as he says, if all these things are true, if not, if Jesus and Paul were creating a new religion, then disregard what I said and follow whatever you want to follow. If Paul was a true Jew and Jesus was a true Jew, this is Paul's context in Romans chapter 13. Wow, I belabored that. I went all over the place with that, didn't I? How do we gain control of this?
Well, considering the current time, an attempt to regain control would be to sum up everything that we tried to cover. Because I did want to nail that point, but we kind of went on a rabbit trail that, given the current time, my point may have to truly be that cliffhanger and say, till next week.
I know. And I'm impressed that the person that brought that up in chat went straight to Romans 13 as well, because truly, I'm impressed. It's so seldom that I find someone that has enough understanding of the New Testament and the Bible as a whole to be able to go to a certain place, because, like I said, all I could remember is it's Romans, because I love Romans, and I've broken out the different chapters based on a topical frame. So I knew it was Romans around chapter 13 someplace, and so for this person to bring it out, I'm impressed. Maybe they just Google it real quick and beat me to the punch, but that's great. I love that. You know, there's a couple of rabbis that I love and appreciate because they know the New Testament so well as the Torah, that in the middle of a discussion they can quote and go to the very verse and quote that verse in the New Testament. These are rabbis. They think the New Testament is heresy. They think the New Testament is totally false and pagan. But yet
they still need to know the argument in order to
contradict
what you're saying.
That's it. They have studied it. They haven't just read it. They've studied it so that they know where to go to for specific things. I'm impressed by such things. I don't possess that ability and that knowledge. So
this is gonna bring us back on that track once more, because I think this next statement was actually made more as a statement to kind of back up what you were saying. Someone else tried to add more to what you were saying. We do need to follow the laws of the land we live in, unless it does go against Torah. Then you are to stand against whatever is being undermined. An example being abortion is legal in most cases here in the U.S., but by Torah standards, abortion is wrong. Basically, everything requires judgment, but just say we had a leader who wasn't Torah-based. That does not mean we don't have to listen to him. He's still the leader of the nation. We are under his rule.
Yeah, and I think this really goes to the heart of all of it, and that is, the Torah demands the utmost, the highest principle is God, and the belief in there is only one God, not a unified, not whatever we want to bring about in our own understanding, but there is only one God. God is eternal, always was, always will be. He is the same at the beginning and the same at the end, which means he is in every time frame that man has ever existed the same at all times. He is not bound by time and space. So the God that spoke to Abraham speaks to me at the same time he's speaking to Abraham, speaks to you at the same time he's speaking to Moses. The whole point is God is not bound by anything. He is existent at all times simultaneously.
Right.
That's a concept.
Same yesterday, today, and forevermore.
And that's what that means. Yeah. exactly. Sometimes we have to really slow it down to understand it in that aspect. That being said, God is paramount and first and absolute. Because there is God, God is a God of life, not a God of death. So therefore, the second most important principle is life. That is why under Jewish law, under Torah law, it is so difficult to bring about capital punishment. This is one of the reasons why Jews have a hard time with the New Testament about the stoning of Stephen and Paul talking about stonings and stonings here and stonings there, is because in Jewish law and in history, that sounds craziness. But Jews want to pinpoint and find fault with the New Testament and Christians and Messianics. So there's room to play with there. The point is, life is utmost. Do all that you can and must do to preserve life, with the exception of the denunciation of Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. That takes precedence over life. Then there is life. Then everything else must fall in line with the first two principles I just mentioned. So, if the law of the land is saying do this, and it does not require sacrifice of life or denunciation of Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, then you should go ahead and go with it until you can do something to change it or leave that land, leave that authority, leave that rule. When we come to the point where, let's say, we'll just go with the argument of abortion. Personally, I think there's all kinds of rooms. Judaism takes all kinds of room with the whole aspect and idea of abortion. Within Judaism and within Torah, it still comes down to, when does life begin? Is it upon insemination? Is it upon the first breath? Is it somewhere in between? Whatever it may be. Does the government require you to kill your unborn child, your unborn embryo? If at that point in time the government intercedes and requires you to kill, just as what they do in China, then I say it's time to leave or take a stance.
Right.
Because life takes precedence. Until that time the United States requires you to kill your unborn child, I would say continue to protest, continue to demonstrate, continue to promote those leaders that stand pro-life as opposed to pro-abortion. I will never say pro-choice. Yeah, pro-abortion or pro-life. Until that point, it's not a detriment upon anyone, because really what the United States government has done is done exactly what God has done. God, from God's position, and I don't mean to speak for God, but based on my Torah understanding, God puts man's free will above almost everything. Man's free will is so important to God that he did not interject, intervene, or convert anything with his own chosen. When Joseph was thrown into the well to be killed, or when Joseph, instead of being killed in the well, was sold off into slavery, because God can still use that. But the point is, God did not interject and intervene into the free will of the sons of his own blessed ones, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Hopefully I'll be able to get into the whole aspect of free will and why that's so important to God and how that plays out throughout mankind and Torah. But God does not intervene into free will because it goes into the hardening of Pharaoh's heart. Yeah, we got about 15 minutes left, and I really want to get into my aspect of it because it's very challenging to the Christians and Messianics. And we didn't complete Jesse's aspect because Jesse brought up something and he didn't complete it, but it's pretty interesting. It's the idea of this altar that Yethro brought his whole burnt offerings and his peace offerings to God in acknowledging that God is God. It's the whole burnt offering and the peace offering, shalomim offerings, these peace offerings that classify. This is what Judaism classifies. This is the ger. He doesn't have to convert. Judaism does not require conversion for salvation, unlike Christianity and Islam. You don't have to be a Jew to be saved. That's craziness in a Jewish mindset. That's antithetical to Torah. You don't have to be a Jew to be saved in Torah-based mindset. Yethro is our class action lawsuit showing this very thing. Yethro brings a whole burnt offering and he brings a peace offering in an action representing, he's denouncing all his pagan ideas and his pagan ways and embracing the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, yet he's not going to convert. And this altar that Moshe erects, separate from the other altars that Moshe erects at Sinai, this altar is called what, Jesse?
This altar is called, let me find the wording again. It was Hashem Nisi, which is God is my banner. Which the funny thing about that is, if we remember back in the time frame that we were dealing with the war against Amalek, Moshe actually used a similar name for a similar altar. If I'm not mistaken, he erected an altar and proclaimed, in which he would proclaim God's war against Amalek for all generations.
There you go, and that's it. The Cohen, or not Cohen, the correlation with this is that here we have the high priest of paganism for the world. That is what we were supposed to have understood many Torah portions ago. Reuel was the high priest of Midian, which represented paganism for the entire world. This was the high priest of all religions in the world. Reuel.
And it was said at one time that, according to commentary, that Reuel, Balaam, and Job had appeared before Pharaoh, and Pharaoh was asking, "What do I do with the Jews?" Reuel was the only one who said, "Do not harm them. Do not go against them." Job didn't say anything, but Balaam, he's the one who said, "Yeah, enslave them, do whatever." Just a note.
Yeah, and that's not saying that that's what actually happened. This is the council of these three individuals. Reuel being the high priest of paganism. Balaam being the prophet of all non-Jews, of all the Gentile world, who knows God, who sees God, who his words come true. This is the most spiritual individual outside of Judaism. Job, and this is the fun thing, most Christians don't recognize this. There's a few theologians of hundreds of years ago that recognize it and write towards it, but Job was not a Jew. Job was not a descendant of Abraham. Job is the Gentile, the only Gentile that is included as a capitulation and an encapsulation of what the world outside of Judaism should be. Job is that embodiment. That's what's fun and exciting about looking at Torah from a Jewish perspective. Job was a Gentile. Now, I say Gentile. What I really mean is Job was a ger tushav. Job recognized there was only one God. Job was living within a Jewish community, but he was not a Jew. And we see the struggles and the problems with Job. And this is an example for all of Judaism for all eternity. This ger, this non-Jew, this is how he lived, this is how he struggled, this is what was promised and given to him. This is an icon for you. And for God to use a Gentile like Job to say, this is what you should be striving for, it proves that God is a God of all humanity, not just God of the Jews. So, going on with that, we have what Frank said, and I love it because it's perfect. And what Jesse's talking about is God is my banner, Adonai or Hashem Nisi. God is my banner. Under this banner, of which was established because of Yithro, the priest of pagans, the highest authority for paganism, the highest authority for idolatry. Why is this important? Because the very first commandment says, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. You will have no other gods in my face. Jesse, what does that say? Look it up real quick. Read it in Hebrew. Okay, and he's struggling here because I caught him off guard.
No. It's not that you caught me off guard. It's that I have to scroll up and down and up and down. Looking for it.
Okay, you're looking for it. All right. It's Exodus chapter 20. Come on.
There we go. Found it.
Read it for me. Just read verse 3.
That's where I'm going.
Lo Hashem.
Lo yihi lecha.
Lo lehi lech.
That's what I said. Elohim. Stop it. Elohim.
I was going to say, Jesse, your voice is changing. It sounds like your dad.
All right.
Elohim Alpani.
Yeah,
it's the Alpani you were trying to get to.
Yeah, I was to Jesse for my Hebrew because he's much more versed in it than I am. And yes, he's good to panim. In English, both in Jewish and Christian Bibles, it's going to read something similar to "You shall have no other gods before me." "You shall have no other gods before me" is part of the very first commandment. The very first commandment is, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. That's the first commandment. If you go to Oklahoma State Capitol and you read the first commandment is, you shall have no other gods before me. No, they missed the first part of that first commandment. Judaism numbers the Ten Commandments one way. Protestant Christianity numbers the Ten Commandments in a different way. Catholic Christians, or Catholicism, numbers the Ten Commandments in a different way. There's 3 different versions of the Ten Commandments. Don't trust me, look it up. Judaism says the first commandment is, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. That statement, you shall have no other gods before me, is Lo yehi lacha Elohim acharim al panei. Al panei is not before me. Al panei is, you shall have no other gods in my face. In my face. It's understood before me. That's good. Nothing wrong with that. From this, Judaism says, from this, all the other commandments are derived. The very next commandment is, you shall not make for yourselves an idol or any image of anything that is in the heavens above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water underneath the earth. Now I've got a question here because later on we're going to come up. Solomon, Shlomo, he's going to add 2 angels, images of angels in the Holy of Holies. Worse than that, God himself is going to command you're going to form golden angels on the ark. Are these not, God, images of something in the heavens above, which you've just commanded me in the second commandment? Don't make an image of anything in the heavens above. Oh, topic for another time. But the preeminent commandment from which all other commandments are derived, or if we want to categorize and prioritize commandments, the first commandment is this, therefore it's the most important. The first commandment is this: you shall have no other gods in my face. Wow. I want to go there, but I don't. But I don't want to.
But when somebody gets into an argument and they jump up in your face, what is it doing? It is disrespecting you completely, is it not?
Yes, or if someone comes up and says, "Oh yes, but so and so said this," that's in your face, because it's saying someone else has the same authority as you. If we say, Paul said this, so therefore it overrules what the Torah says, that's an in your face.
Right.
Instead of slowing down and trying to understand, God said this. Paul, am I misunderstanding what you're saying? God said this. Jesus, Yeshua, am I misunderstanding what you're saying? Do I have a bad translation of what you're saying? Because, and folks, this is, we're at the bottom of the hour, and I want to get there. This is going to be the tough one of all of it. I don't want to offend. I really don't. I don't want to put someone ill at ease. What I want to do is I want to challenge you to study. And that's really my heart. I want you to challenge you to study from Torah first and then everything else. Torah and then the prophets and then the writings and then the New Testament. Unfortunately, Christianity has told us that Jesus is God, and so therefore whatever Jesus said is the same as what God said. Well, if that's true, if it's true, then what Jesus said cannot go against what God had said in the Torah. Study the Torah, know the Torah, so that you can recognize the falseness of anything else that follows. So if the prophets or the writings say anything that contradict the Torah, we must reanalyze what the prophets and the writings are saying or dismiss them. If the New Testament says anything that contradicts or goes against the Torah, then we must reanalyze what the New Testament is saying, or we must reject it. Period. There's no other recourse. Chapter 19, verse 3 of Exodus, our Torah portion for this week, says, Moses ascended to God, and the Lord God called to him from the mountain, saying, So shall you say to the house of Jacob, and tell the house of Israel, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians. He's building up a preface because of what you have personally witnessed, not because of what you felt, not because of blind faith, but because of what you witnessed. You are a witness in this account of what I did to the Egyptians and how I bore you on eagle's wings, what I did with you to bring you out of the Egyptians, and how I brought you to me. And now if you obey me and keep my covenant, two different things. You shall be to me a treasure out of all peoples, because the entire earth is mine. Verse 5. Let me read that again. And now if you obey me and keep my covenant, you shall be to me a treasure out of all peoples, because the entire earth is mine. This is my point. I'm pausing for effect. Go
Well,
slowly.
it's also the bottom of the hour, and
Go slowly with me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the entire earth is mine. God said the entire earth belongs to him. He is the ruler of the entire earth. He is king. He is God of the earth. However, in John chapter 12, verse 31, it says, and this is Jesus saying, this is Yeshua speaking, now judgment is upon the world. Now the ruler of this world will be cast out. How do I make reconciliation with Jesus saying the ruler of this world as opposed to God saying the earth is mine? Who is the ruler of this world? Is it God or is it something else? Now let's move forward before you make judgment, before you come to a conclusion. John chapter 14 verse 30 says, this is Jesus again, this is Yeshua. I will not speak much more with you, for the ruler of this world is coming, and he has nothing with me. Now, if I am the anti-missionary Jew, I'm loaded for bear right now. Because Jesus just said the ruler of this world has nothing with me, but yet Christianity says Jesus is God, and God said he is the ruler of this world out of our Torah portion. Therefore, Jesus is not a part of God. Jesus is not of God. Jesus was rightly killed. What say you, O Christian or O Messianic? Hold on. That's not the end of it. Let's continue on. John 16. We've read John 12:31. We've read John 14:30. Let's go to John 16:11. John 16:11 says, and this again is Yeshua saying, and concerning judgment, because the ruler of this world has been judged. Well, who's the ruler of this world? Our Torah portion says God is the king of this world. Jesus says the ruler of this world has been judged. I'm confused. Paul, can you help me out? Clear up the case for me, Paul. Help me out. 2 Corinthians 4:4. 2 Corinthians 4:4. Paul says, in whose case the God of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelieving, so that they might not see the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. Paul said the God of this world. Wait a minute, Paul. Who is the God of this world? My Torah portion says, God says the entire earth is mine. Worse yet, let's go on to Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 14. God says, behold, to the Lord, your God, belongs the heaven and the highest heavens, and the earth and all that is in it. God claims authority, rule, and kingship in Exodus as well as in Deuteronomy. But that's not enough. Let's go to Daniel. Daniel's dealing with King Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar is the one that himself proclaimed. Nebuchadnezzar said, I am the King of kings, I am the Lord of lords, I will ascend my throne to the highest heavens to be ruler and God-like over all the earth. God said, oh yeah? Really? You will live as a beast of the earth because you were molded from the earth, you are dust from the earth. You will live for 7 days as a beast, and you will eat grass like a beast of the earth, and you will live like a beast of the earth for 7 days. After 7 days, you will recognize who is God, you or the ruler of the universe. And in Daniel 4:17, it says, the sentence is by decree of the angelic watchers, and the decision is a command of the holy ones, in order that the living may know, and the living is all nephesh, may know that the Most High is ruler over the realm of mankind, and bestows it upon him whom he wishes, and sets over it even the lowliest of men. God establishes kings and rulers, not anything else. God is still commander, ruler, judge over this world and over humankind. Psalms chapter 103, verse 13, or verse 19. Psalms 103:19. The Lord has established his throne in the heavens, and his sovereignty rules over all the earth. Jesus? Paul? Where do you come about saying there's something else that rules earth other than God? Jesus, if you are God, how can you contradict yourself? Paul, if you are a Pharisee of Pharisees, how can you dare say there's anything other than God that rules this earth? But let's go to Ephesians chapter 22, or Ephesians chapter 2, verse 2. This is Paul speaking. This helps us clarify and understand. Because I don't want to be an accuser against Christianity and Messianics. What I want to do is be able to connect and properly interpret the New Testament based on the Old Testament, not the Old Testament based on the New Testament. Ephesians 2:2 says, in which you once walked, following the course of the world. Preface is following the course of what humanity is doing. Following the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that is now at work in the sons of disobedience. Here's the issue. I'll cut to the chase because we're out of time. Here's the issue. In John 12, 14, and 16, where Jesus is quoting of talking about a ruler of this world or a ruler of the world, in Greek, it's the same thing of modern day German, where German, in the German language, it's called the Zeitgeist. You may not have heard of Zeitgeist. In German, there's, and this is really coming from the turn of the century up into present day, Zeitgeist refers to the spirit of the day. It doesn't refer to an actual god or ruler of anything. It refers to the spirit of the day. Case in point, the Zeitgeist of America in 1940 through 1945, the Zeitgeist was patriotism. We will sacrifice our gas, we will sacrifice our oil, we will sacrifice our rubber, we will sacrifice even our silk. Silk stockings were non-existent, and therefore came about nylon stockings for women in the 1940s because silk was used for parachutes. We sacrificed and we rationed things for the promotion of the war effort to defeat Nazi Germany and Hitler. That was the Zeitgeist, the spirit of the day, the ruler of the day for America. So what Jesus or Yeshua is really saying is the Zeitgeist of the day is coming. The Zeitgeist is anti-Torah, not the embodiment of Satan and the Antichrist. It's a spiritual understanding and outlook to this. I will not speak much more with you, for the Zeitgeist of the day is coming, and it's going to come to its fruition. I personally think that fruition is through Nero, and even through Nero, because Nero is the one that brought about the great persecutions that led to the destruction of Jerusalem and the diaspora of all of Israel. But the Zeitgeist was anti-Torah. If you were to tell me and say that Jesus and Paul are anti-Torah, abrogated, did away with, adjusted, amended anything in Torah, then you are with the Zeitgeist of what Jesus is saying here. You are agreeing with the ruler of the day, the anti-Torah. But if Jesus was a true Jew, if Jesus is Messiah, if Paul is a Pharisee, a Jew of Jews, a Pharisee of Pharisees of the tribe of Benjamin, then both Paul and Jesus are saying the ruler of the day is the Zeitgeist, the spirit of understanding that says, I want what I want, and I want it now.
Oh, where have I heard that before?
I want fast food theology I don't want to have to think. I want a preacher or someone else to tell me what to believe. I don't want to have to study it for myself. I want something that feels good, that sounds good, that's emotionally driven. I don't want something that's logically based and based upon wisdom that transgresses all the ages. Transgresses? Transponds?
Transgresses.
Okay, that spreads
That'll
throughout
work.
the ages. that want something that fits how I feel now. The preacher, the congregational leader, the rabbi, whoever, he said something that just spoke to my heart, and I was emotionally moved, and so therefore I'm going to believe in rapture. By the way, I don't want to get into rapture now.
We don't have time.
No. There's so many things that comes out of Christianity that has bled into Messianics that is really emotionally driven based on teachings of the New Testament, and we failed to go back to the New Testament and measure the New Testament under the light of Torah. Torah is our rock, not the New Testament. Torah is our rock, not the prophets. Torah is our rock, not the writings. The writings and the prophets have been included, canonized because of Torah, not to supersede or explain Torah for us. Never, do not ever read the New Testament to help you understand Torah and therefore supplant Torah. Read the New Testament in the light of Torah, which means you've got to understand Torah first before you can even approach the New Testament, because the New Testament is so filled with the so mystical, spiritual level of understanding, and you never understood the Bashat, basic understanding of Torah. Our Torah portion says that the earth belongs to God. He is king. He is Melech Olam. Not something else, not some Satan, not some demon, not some boogeyman that Greek mythology spread into Romanism, that spread into Roman Catholicism, that spread into Christianity. God is in control of everything, always was, always will be. Mashiach now. Amen. Frank, okay. Jesse, to you guys. Done. I'm dropping the mic.
Dropping mic. Besides, you know the boogeyman? John Wick. He's the one you sent to kill the boogeyman. No, sorry. movie plug there. So,
alrighty then.
No, I'm gonna have to watch that movie. I saw bits and pieces of it. It looks pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I don't think we have time for a sum up. So we're going to fast forward and say this is 2.5 Opinions. I'm Yishai.
I'm Frank.
I'm not the Rebbe.
Even though.
Did we have any more comments out of the chat room? Did we anything to address? Because wow, we transgressed and we tipped over a bunch of sacred cows and
we went way long.
Yeah, and the whole point is, I mean, Frank's got some great stuff that he brings up. I'm extremely opinionated. I think that I'm casually versed. I won't say that I'm well versed, but I want to approach our show from a Torah perspective, not
exactly
any other perspective.
Exactly. So, Jesse, anything at all? Anything?
At this juncture in time, I think we've nailed it all on the head, or at least hit our thumb enough times to say time to stop.
Yeah, hit our thumb.
Yeah, really. Okay, well, we thank you all for listening. We really do. We appreciate it. We are sorry to Mark that we went so way long. Mark did say, you guys can go as long as you want, but within reason. So this is 2.5 Opinions, and we will see you, God willing, blessed be the Most High, next week.
Okay. I guess we're going to close the room, so... Okay. Remember, the short, disclaimer here is, if your speakers break or your computer breaks because I sing, I am in no way liable for any damages caused by that or any cameras that take my picture, okay? So, let me see if I can remember the song. Let me see. Do I remember the words? Okay. Mizmor shir, shir le'yom ha'shabos. Mizmor shir, shir le'yom ha'shabos. Mizmor shir, shir le'yom ha'shabos. Mizmor shir. Shir le'yom ha'shabos, the whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. The whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. And I am also waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. I am also waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. The flowers and the trees sing the song of Shabbos. The valleys and the mountains sing the song of Shabbos. The stars in the skies sing the song of Shabbos. The angels in heaven sing the song of Shabbos. The whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. The whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. And I am also waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. I am also waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. I saw 6 million dying. They sang the song of Shabbos. I hear 3 million crying to sing the song of Shabbos. Stop all the hatred, sing the song of Shabbos. Love one another, sing the song of Shabbos. Dance on the street, sing the song of Shabbos. Dance on the street, sing the song of Shabbos. The whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. The whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. And I am also waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. Mizmor shir, shir le'yom ha'shabos. There. Are you happy now, Charlotte? Do it again, do it again. Come on, will you?
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.
Thank you for your generous donations to Messianic Lamb Radio. You will be blessed, as promised in Proverbs 22, verse 9. These donations enable listeners from around the world to hear words of hope in teachings and in songs. Toda Rabbah.